Welcome to the OFM podcast. I'm the host, or the other person talking, the other talking head of this, Peter Defty. And today I've got the lovely Andrea Moore back on the podcast, fresh off a Monsterdona, a massive Monsterdona month, right? That's probably over 600 miles in a month, right?
Something like that. It's crazy how it all just kind of blurs together.
Yeah. So Andrea just finished Saturday morning. She finished Cocodona 250. And a month earlier, she did the Monster 300. And it's known as Monsterdona if you do both. Now tell us, Andrea, there was a handful, literally less than two handfuls of people doing it.
Yeah, I think there's a number swirling around that 21 people worldwide registered for both. So I think 21 started in April.
And how many how many did the deed, completed the deed?
Well, I haven't really looked at the data myself, but the rumors are that 21 started. I would think they said 14 survived Monster 300, and then I think there's maybe 6 or 7 of us that completed both after Cocodona.
And there were two females, and you were the top female, but only two females actually completed both, correct?
To my knowledge, yeah, Anna Robbins and myself.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I wanted to get you on this conversation because the first time we had you on, we took the deep dive into what makes Andrea tick. And you were like, wow, we're talking, we're not talking about ultras, we're talking about life. And
yeah.
my vision for this podcast today is how that experience, your experience growing up and everything you've done in life and all the challenges each human has to face in life, how you've turned these into an incredible journey. And I want you to talk to us about that journey, this mostly, the Monsterdona experience and, the journey you've been on, because last year you did 2 out of the 3 Triple Crowns, right?
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of other stuff, and you've got a bunch of stuff planned. So I just kind of want to hear your side of it in the journey, because, I used to say like running 100 is like a microcosm for life. You go through all these serious highs and lows and you arrive at the other side. It's like, wow. So it's a good life lesson, but, to do what you've done, that's kind of like taking it to another level in a really cool way.
That's a lot of really big questions, Peter. I don't know. I think, talking about a deep dive into who I am as a person, and, we all bring experiences to the forefront, and I don't know. I've always just wanted to go above and beyond. The regular path has not ever been one that, my parents were happy with. It was just always the extra. And somehow the slippery slope of extra has turned into extra. But, as soon as the rumors were swirling around the new race, the new Destination Trails race, Arizona Monster 300, there were people already talking about, well, wow, that's, just 4 weeks before Cocodona. And, are you going to do Monster or Cocodona? And there was a small group that said, you could just do both. And we would call it either Coco Monster, I think Andy Glaze named it that, or Monsterdona. And
I like the Monsterdona.
Well, it's in sequence, right? Because you do Monster first and then Cocodona, Monsterdona. So
but there's some roll off the tongue that finishes with that's also nice. Cocoa Monster reminds me of Cocoa Puff cereal.
I think that's Andy's reference actually is a cereal. But, so people kind of already talking about the possibility of this ridiculous idea of running both. It was intriguing to me. It was, wow, what if, right? Like, what if we could actually do that? And so the more rumors were flying, the rumors were predominantly male. There wasn't a lot of women talking about, hey, I want to go do Arizona Monster 300 in Cocodona. And so I'm always wanting to fill that gap and represent the female runners in the space, and just said, hey, put our name in the hat and let's just see what happens. We'll fly the bucket flag, right? And see how it goes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and we need to give a big shout out to Candace too, because she's the one that she's the one she's a woman. I mean, I'm gender neutral on this, but she was the person who stepped up and stepped out of this 100-miler thing, and everybody thought she was crazy when she did. And look at it now; it's like, okay, let's see what else. And I have to say, and that's not taking anything away from Jamil, but Cocodona wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Candace starting this whole, okay, let's just go way beyond 100-milers and see what's out there. And she's done a great job of coming up with these destination trail 200+ mile races, correct? And the only one you haven't completed yet is Tahoe Rim, right?
And we're less than 4 weeks away. So, I had a chance to speak with Candace at Athlete Check-In for Arizona Monster 300, and it was really cool because she's super approachable, and I was just able to say thank you, right? Because you're to your point, we can't adventure all these miles without the crazy person creating these courses. And
well, you can speak for you. I actually do stupid stuff like that on my own, and I don't recommend it.
Well, I just couldn't imagine like what it requires to create a course of that magnitude. 200s, 300s, 250s, 240s, all of those things. And it's because of them, that we get to go and play out in the wilderness and pretend to be feral panthers, and play in the dirt. So yeah, absolutely. It's incredible what she's done to really lay the path for the sport.
Yeah. And so, part of this is that journey, because you are, Jen and I, my social media, Jen, and I just marvel at the content you put out. But part of that, and this is where we want to dive into both Monster. I want you to just take us through your journey, because some of your reels and stuff are just, you're putting it all out there. I mean, you see the incredible beauty, the miracle of the journey, but then you see yourself raw and bare and emotionally just stripped down to nothing too, which everybody goes through that in these ultras, right?
Yeah, it's ebbs and flows 100% of the time. And I think sometimes social media, we like to put out the sparkly, beautiful, sections and moments and memories. But there's a tax to pay. There's a toll to pay in order to get to those beautiful views or those really glorious moments. And it's hard. And I think sometimes we don't really reflect, or we don't share the really hard stuff. And so I'm trying to do more of that.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job, and it's inspiring that you have the courage to share that stuff. Because I mean, some of your stuff's pretty raw. I mean that in a really beautiful way, because it's like, yeah, this is the human condition. This is what happens when we get pushed to our limits.
Yeah, the stuff that happens out there, those are changing moments. Those are forged in the fire moments, and they're beautiful in and of themselves. And we're, crying happy tears, like just sharing the whole picture, like not just the beautiful stuff, but the dark stuff, that
Yeah.
happens in these races.
Well,
Yeah.
and so tell us about, let's just kind of go back to the Monster 300. It seems like there was that stretch between, was it Oak something and Casablanca?
Yeah.
There was something, you weren't the only one who had some about 281 or something like that, 279,
Yeah.
280, 281.
Yeah.
Apparently that piece bit a lot of people. Can you describe that? What was going on? I mean, because you had it, you posted stuff, but I remember I was cooking for Chad Bruce and Peter Mortimer, and Peter posted
Yes.
stuff in the middle of the night. And Chad even said it was just, there was something about that 3 or 4 or 5 miles. It was just, and it was a point in the race where, you're ready to crack. You can't smell the barn. You don't smell the barn yet, but you're 270 some odd miles out.
Yeah, it's almost like that mile 22 in a marathon. You hit the wall. Every race, it doesn't matter the distance, you hit that wall, and the wall is asking you, are you going to continue? And you have to just rally and go for it. But so we spent all day in the hot, exposed desert, coming into the aid station before Casablanca.
Right.
At that aid station, it was carnage. I mean, the vibes were low. The volunteers were amazing and stuff like that. But I think it was just a difficult spot because we knew what we were going into. We were heading into a 22-mile section, very hot, very exposed, and that's just a long section when you're that far into a race. And so we left with Jocelyn Briggs, who finished just in front of us, but she's from Canada. She left with Stephanie Rosenball, my pacer, and myself, and we were just like, you know what? We just have to get through this. Okay, so we had
Stephanie was your pacer?
Stephanie Rosenball was a pacer. Yeah.
Very cool, because I've been trading emails with her.
Oh, she is so fascinated around Vespa. Just I can't tell you, Peter, like the number of people that have reached out just wondering, what is your recovery strategy? How are you able to do this? What's the secret? And Stephanie was one that we were able to share. We use Vespa, and it's just a crazy science behind how you fuel your body and what your body is using as energy out on that course. So super excited for her to kind of learn more, and she's gonna skyrocket. She's a phenomenal athlete. She was 3rd female at Bigfoot last year. So
wow, okay, I didn't know that, and I guess Peter's her coach.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
he knows the OFM drill real well. So
yeah.
And that's the thing. We got this slowly growing group of people who are really understand the potential of this, getting your body back to what I call your foundation physiology of burning fat for aerobic energy. And you certainly are emblematic about that, because, okay, let's just, I want to place the context, but I want you to do the talking. So you're not Peter Mortimer or Jeff Browning. You're a back of the packer who's moving up to the middle of the pack. Right? I mean, you finished 93rd out of 199 finishers at Arizona Monster, so you were in the top part of the middle, right? Yeah. And that's for somebody who started out, as a cutoff,
just trying to make cutoffs.
Yeah, chasing the cutoffs, and you not only didn't chase the cutoffs, you did it, and it's like I say, people like you are the ones who, you pay for 300 miles, you pay for the how many hours and days you get, you take your time and you get your money for it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so, um, you know, talk to us about that, because you're not, like Jeff and Peter are literally finishing a day or more ahead of you in these multi-day events.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I would say, I'm not out trying to get faster. I'm not out trying to podium. I I would say that my goal is just to explore more and go further. And, I don't know that there's a whole lot of people running, 6, 7, 8, 200s in a 6-month period. And so my objective is a little bit different than I would say Jeff and Mortimer. They want a podium. They're trying to get there as fast as possible. I'm trying to just add more fun to the run. And how can we do more of these adventures? And that requires smart recovery and smart
And
fueling.
staying healthy. Well, to a point,
Yeah.
that's the real thing I see, because I'm working with all of y'all, right?
Right.
And those insights that started when I first started working in 2008 with John Olson, who was a world-class ultra runner at the time, who had GI issues like Jeff. It just, like, if you go to Ultra Sign Up and look at Jeff's 2021 to 2022 from Hard Rock to Hard Rock, he was fifth at Hard Rock in 2021 and fifth.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing something big every 5 to 7 weeks, a big event.
Yep.
So Peter and
Yeah.
Jeff are actually racing like way more than the other elites.
Yeah.
And then here you are. I
Right.
mean, like I said, you've just completed over 600 miles in the last 30 days. I mean, you did Monster 300, and then I see you're out there training, so you must have gotten in, another 50, 60 miles somewhere in the
Yeah.
last 3 weeks, right? At least
Yeah.
maybe 100
Yeah.
miles. And then all of a sudden you turn around and you just crushed it. So tell us about that. I mean, start with, how it went with Monster. And then I think I remember saying something to you either in a text or an email or in person, that you're going to get a big bounce out of Monster that's going to set you up well for Cocodona. And it certainly seems like that was the case.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people think, oh, you just ran Monster 300. You're going to feel tired. You're going to feel down. You're going to feel fatigued. You're going to feel all these things. And that race should be a detriment to the next race, with Cocodona just being, by the time we finish Monster, right? Because it's like 5 or 6 days, we really just had like 3 weeks until the start of Cocodona. And people just, it was the opposite. I felt stronger at Cocodona than I did at Monster.
Yep.
And it's like, how is that possible?
It's the training effect you got from Monster.
Yeah. And I'm really excited. We're just 3.5 weeks out from Tahoe. And I really feel like Tahoe is going to be stronger than Cocodona and stronger than Monster. And it's a very, I'm not a scientist. I don't know how it all works, but all I can say is every race I feel stronger. And I'm really excited for Tahoe.
Well, yeah. And was this year's Cocodona better for you than last year's Cocodona?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like 1,000,000,000%. I was actually just talking to Jackie. It was like, I remember last year getting to Walnut Canyon, and there's a video out there that my pacer Liz took, and I was like, I am never doing this again. This is so hard. It's so horrific. And, we showed up this year just leaner, more fit, stronger. And I could say that we went through that same section with 2 other runners, Tanessa Klein, sister of Tony Klein, and Aaron from Colorado. And we just went through that section like no big deal, so definitely a lot fitter this year than last year.
So you're really building upon these events.
it's so cool.
It is. It is. And well, it's so cool to see you and see you doing this. That's why I wanted to have you on. We got to get people out there seeing this because it's like, Peter Mortimer, he finished Monster. Less than 24 hours later, he was in the OR working, right? But
Yeah.
you finished like a day and a half after him.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
had a lot more time out there in that exposure, and boy, it was some pretty gnarly exposure.
It was super hot. It was very exposed. That section coming into Casablanca, which was the last aid station, that's
Yep.
where I saw the video from Mortimer. He was dying. I think we were all dying on that section. It
I
was
don't know
just,
what it was, but everybody was posting, and Scott Jenkins, our other ambassador,
yes,
same
Scott.
thing, same place,
Yeah.
no matter what time of day, who it was.
Yeah, well, it was a 22-mile section, and it was just a mind-numbing section. It was up, downs, arounds, up, down, around, repeat again, and it just felt like you were seeing the same terrain over and over and over. And then when we finally get to what we think is the descent, it was just a swirly hot mess. It was just like, where are we going? But a 22-mile section in 97 degrees, or I mean, those guys, if they were going through there at night, it was probably really, really cold because we were up on a ridge,
It was
and
cold.
it just seemed to go forever and ever and ever. It was super tough section. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about your sleep strategy for these. I think this is going to be really informative for our audience because that's one of the things I've really honed in on in terms of advising fat adapted athletes. Like be really strategic about your sleep, and you either got to go really short dirt naps when they're called for, but really you want to try to get more sleep. And Peter got almost 9 hours of sleep.
Wow. Must be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, at Monster, I think that we probably had about 6 hours total sleep. Jackie is the general as always, and we don't sleep really more than an hour and a half. Hour and a half is maybe happens once or twice, and that's considered the hard stop. But most of the time, when we come into an aid station, it's like we're just going to take 20 minutes. And so I will immediately lay down, close my eyes while Jackie crew removes shoes, gaiters, socks. They clean the feet, and then they put, a tiger balm on my feet. And for the next however many minutes that I sleep, that tiger balm is kind of working. But I would say the same for Cocodona. I think Cocodona was actually closer to like maybe 5.5 hours of sleep. So you have to listen to your body, but I definitely wouldn't sleep for longer than an hour and a half. And I say an hour and a half, I think when I think I'm sleeping for an hour and a half, I think Jackie actually sets her watch for 45 minutes. And that's some of the longest sleeps that I'll take.
Because with Chad and with Peter, we were doing hour to hour and a half hard sleeps, right?
Yeah.
And what I would do is and this is something for Jackie to keep in mind for the future, is like if you're in an hour, like you got your timer set, if you're in an hour and Andrea's like out cold, not moving, dead, let him go a little longer because that extra sleep, what Peter found was that extra sleep was money because he could just go so much faster. I mean, and it ranged between an hour and 2 hours, but mostly right in that hour and a half range.
Okay.
Like if you get to an hour 15 and somebody's stirring, get them up, get them out because it's counterproductive. And that's what the crew could be doing. If you're out cold and dead, let you sleep as long as it makes sense to sleep, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. A lot of times she does a check-in is what we call it. Yep. And so maybe like 15, 20 minutes before my time is up, she'll just say, she'll do a little nudge, and I either wake up from the nudge and then we know, let's just take a few more minutes. If I don't wake up from the nudge, she'll let me keep
Yeah, that's
sleeping.
exactly it.
So that's kind of a little code that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I do is I just sit in the car. I'm sitting in the car while the person's sleeping, and then if if they're moving around, you can tell if they're moving around,
Yes.
get them up. If they're dead, let them go a little longer because it's
Yeah.
money.
No,
An hour and a half.
100%.
Yeah, that hour and a half of hard sleep seems to be magical, right?
It is magical. And I will say, my first dirt naps were in our first Cocodona, a couple of years ago. I'd never taken a dirt nap. I didn't know, is this okay? Are there bugs? Are there snakes? Like, is it okay? But you know what? You're so tired, it won't matter. And
I
it's
took one
very
Sunday.
but what I found is, like, just put your feet up on a rock so they're above your head. 8 minutes is the magic number. You don't need 10, you don't need 15. 8 minutes. Put your feet up and use your pack as your pillow, and immediately close your eyes and start to deep breathe. Take real heavy breaths. 8 minutes is the secret number.
That's the what number that works for you.
Yeah, for me. Yeah.
That kind of makes sense, because I remember one time I was pacing Simon Matui, and I made him do a 4-minute nap, and it was magic for him. But boy, at 4 minutes, he didn't know where he was when I woke him up.
No,
But
it's some people. I mean, if you need longer, it's a solid investment to take a longer nap. I think it's hard sometimes, especially for the mid back of the pack. It's like, do I have time to do this?
Yeah.
But to your point, Peter, you will move more efficiently if you just stop, take a moment, give your body a break, and then move forward.
Yeah, we certainly saw that with Peter at Monster, because, he had 3 or 4 people he was running with the whole time. They were either ahead of him, they were just moving around, and he was just taking his time. And I remember somebody said to him at one of the aid stations towards the end, and he said, "No, I got him right." And this was a remote one. He said, "No, I got him right where I want." It was an aid station worker, and he said, they're right where I want them to be, and because they were ahead of him. And he'd had a good rest, and it was like, okay, time to put the hammer down.
Yeah, he shared a bit of his sleep strategy when we were out there running together. He was pacing from Jerome to Deer Pass, and that was magic. I learned so much in like 20 something miles than I probably ever have, just watching him flow over the terrain. So smart, so efficient, and he literally was asking everyone that we came across if they'd had their Vespa lately because he knows what works. It was amazing. It was so super cool that he just genuinely cares about everyone on the race course, and he wants them to have the best race that they can. But he shared a lot about his sleep strategy and how he would come into an aid station out front, and he would sit down, he would start sleeping. He would wait for the next person behind him to come into the aid station, and he would continue to sleep. He would let them leave the aid station first, and he would immediately open his eyes, and then he's like, okay, now it's time to go.
Yep.
So he got so much more sleep than everybody. It's so smart. It was brilliant.
Yeah. We talked about it before the race, and then during the race, I crewed for him. I was able to crew for him a little because I had a lot of aid. So, and his, his partner Siska, she's fabulous.
Yeah.
And so, and for Casablanca that night, I ended up driving into South Tucson to get him a double and a cappuccino at the Starbucks and the In-N-Out in South Tucson. And then we drove all the way out to Casablanca so that he could have his double and animal style fries.
Yes.
And then and then right before he went down, he had what they call a nappuccino. So he had an Americano. I had an Americano with cream, and he takes that right before he goes down. So when he gets up, the caffeine's got him, and he went from Casablanca out like he just crushed that last section.
Well, he's an incredible athlete, but he's even a more just rad human, and thankful to.
Y'all are, and he was out there pacing you, and
it was so fun.
Yeah, he was doing a whole bunch of different things. Was he doing some of the live cast too, or just?
Yeah, he did parts of the live stream. He also had some athletes out there, and
the various races.
It was just so fun. We would come across, other runners, and he would say, "No walking. I see you." And as we come running by, people were stopping him. "Can I take pictures?" I was like, "Hey, that's my pacer. We got to go. We don't have time for pictures." It was so fun. And I think that
Where did he pace you from? The Dead Horse?
From Jerome to Deer Pass.
Okay.
So two sections that were nice and flowy. We had a ton of rain in that second section, but it didn't matter. We were just flying high. It was so amazing. We were listening to Wu-Tang and like 80s rap. It was killer. It's something I won't forget for a long time. And that
was one of the good sections. So where did you have some of the low patches?
Gosh.
How about the climb up the Mingus Mountain?
I love that section, and that actually was not very dark for me. Now, leaving Fain Ranch, you have to go through 6 miles of pasture.
Right.
Rain, cow soup. It was so bad, Peter. It was really, really tough. And, fortunately, I was able to go through that section with a good friend of mine, Mary Dean from Georgia, and her pacer, Lee. And it was like, you know what? We could be mad about this, or we can delight in this. And it was like, we'll tell stories about this. Like, this is magic. This is why we're here. And it was just kind of crazy to like flip the script. But that's what you have to do when you hit these really tough sections. So that was a tough section, but the climb, once we actually got to the trailhead of Mingus and started our climb, it was glorious and beautiful, and it really wasn't as muddy as that pasture leading up to it. But
very cool. Where did you have those? Go ahead.
That night one. The night one. So we had our best climb up Lane Mountain. The cooler temperatures were a gift. I was like, oh, this is what it's like to climb Lane Mountain in 50-degree weather. It was amazing. We had so much fun. The views were stunning as always. It was just a wonderful section. Come into Crown King. We leave pretty quickly, get down to Arrastra Creek. It's super, super cold. And we're making the climb out of Arrastra Creek. And I was with Mary Dean and Ben. I was with friends. And Monster just came knocking on the door. And Monster 300 was like, "Hey, remember me? How tired are you right now? How much pain are you in right now? It's only day 1." And so the demons were like coming at me like, "You're only at mile 40. You have 210, actually 216 miles to go. You're already tired. You're not going to make it, Andrea. You're not going to make it." So night one was a really difficult, like mentally. Physically, I felt fine, but mentally, I just felt so tired. And I wasn't sure, I really wasn't sure if I was going to do this.
So night one was the real low spot.
Yes. And the answer is always to make a TikTok. So we made a TikTok that went viral that, just speaking the truth. And it was, we're in a spot. I think I started the video by saying I felt like shit, but I had to recoil and say, no, you don't feel like shit. This is normal. Anybody that's going to run 300 miles and 3 weeks later run 250 miles, this is how you're supposed to feel. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be like this. And this is just a spot. This is a for now, not a forever. And you just have to fight your way out of the spot. And we did that by making a video and
I don't think you were fighting. I think you were just allowing it to be and just moving beyond it.
I think that you're right. We acknowledge the fact that this is hard right now. You're tired, you're cold, it is what it's supposed to be. And it's kind of like, you're at the party, welcome to the party. Yeah. And you're right, like, don't fight it, just let it be and keep moving and tell it to fuck off. And we did. We just got to Yankee Doodle and up to Camp Keepa, and everything was pretty great after that.
Where'd you take your first sleep stop?
Our first sleep was at Whiskey Row.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was super tired, but as soon as we come down into the square in Prescott, Whiskey Row, I see Jackie. Finally, we're gonna get pacers, and just to see your people is so delightful, and it's like, it's so comforting, and it's like, okay, now I'm with my people, now we can rest. And I just like last year, I just fell into the grass and immediately fell asleep. They threw a blanket on me, gave me a sourdough grilled cheese sandwich, and said, go to sleep.
Nice. How long did you sleep at Whiskey Row?
We slept about 40 minutes there. Just saying 45 minutes. So we slept about 45 minutes there.
Okay. And then you got up and got going.
Yeah. Yeah. Checked out, went to the Dells, and we did from the Dells to Iron King is always a big running section for me. You're just kind of down this gravel road.
Right.
So it's always fun to run into Iron King.
Then from Iron Spring to the trailhead or the climb up to Mingus is pretty much open space, right?
Yeah. And for the first time this year, we hit it before the sun went down. So that was exciting. We were about 3 hours ahead of pace chart schedules. And I got to see sections that I've never seen in the light before. So seeing Fane Ranch when it wasn't dark was pretty cool, except it was super muddy.
Yeah. So you climbed up Mingus Mountain in the dark, right? I remember you got there in the middle of the night or something like that.
Yes. So we normally would start the climb up Mingus around 2:00 in the morning. And we started, I guess it was closer to 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So still dark, but we were able to come into the Mingus aid station before the sun was up. And that was the first time in the last several years that we got to Mingus before the sun was up.
Did you take a nap there too?
We did. I was just trying to get all the clay and mud off of my shoes.
Yep.
It was super cool. Someone I don't even know just offered a dry pair of Injiji toe socks. And so I tried to swap socks with her. I said, do you want my socks? I'll trade you socks. She didn't want my socks.
I wonder why.
But that was so super cool. So yeah, I put on some dry socks. I put my feet up on a chair so they were elevated above my head. I put my pack behind my head. This is all after like 3 helpings of lasagna.
Yep.
And yeah, just elevated my feet for 20 minutes. A volunteer there, Inez, she set a 20-minute timer. And then we were off to go again.
Wow. And then, yeah, there's just so many sections of Cocodona they're all epic, right? But
every single one, honestly.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even following you guys to Arizona. I love Southern Arizona because my dad's family actually were some of the pioneering families in Arizona back at the turn of the last century. So all that stuff I know about, and it's just like even the Southern Arizona landscape it's just epic, right?
Yeah. Monster had some very, very beautiful sections. I'm not as familiar with the trails down south, so to
Right.
be on the southern part of the Arizona Trail was super special. Day one was stunning at Monster. We couldn't put our phones away, our GoPros away. It was very, very beautiful for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. The
Yeah.
climb up Mount Lemon and climb back
Oh,
down is stunning too.
that was quite a climb. So you leave the aid station, you kind of meander up for, a couple of miles, 2 or 3 miles, and all of a sudden you are climbing. And
Yeah,
it is a steep climb. I mean, which the cool part about steep climbs is you're up there fast. And so the views were amazing and beautiful. That climb just never ended. It's a very steep climb, very rocky. So it was like 7 mile climb with 7,000 feet of gain.
yeah.
It
I
it
mean,
was
yeah. And when you're going up over Catalina, all of a sudden it goes from
yeah,
this little meandering kind of rolling
yeah,
landscape to shit just got real.
yeah. It punches you right in the face. And but I mean that's what we're there for. It was like this is amazing. This is beautiful. And it just once you think that you're at the top, of course, like most, it's a false summit and another false summit and another false summit. I something that I really liked about that climb though, so you're on the Arizona Trail and there are through hikers coming on the race course. And so you're like having these really cool exchanges with people that have been, out on the Arizona Trail for days or, depending on which direction that they're going. And anyways, that was really, really cool. I really like that.
Now, did you climb Mount Lemon in the daytime?
We did. So we left the aid station before the climb. The sun was still down, and we got about 2 or 3 miles of the meandering part,
Right.
and the sun was starting to rise. And so we literally climbed Lemon with the sunrise. It was so beautiful and stunning. But I heard the really fast kids
Yeah.
had like storms or something,
They had a
right?
snowstorm. They climbed it in a snowstorm. Yeah, I was up there and
Yeah.
it was snowing and cold, bitter cold, like it was below freezing. And Chad
Well,
said that was the hardest thing he's ever done.
wow.
You know,
Well,
I was
that that
I was crewing for Peter. Peter Cisco was there, and
yeah.
Peter came in and out. And then after he left, Chad came in, and it was just, oh my God. And for them, it was really hard because they went up in a snowstorm. That cold front was still
Yeah.
going through. And then the next
Yep.
day, when you climbed it, that's when it turned hot. So they're going down, and
Well,
it
we
there was
we
like a
we call we call those fast people problems, Peter. They should come back to the party pace pack and they wouldn't have snowstorms.
yeah. I mean, they had like a 50-degree temperature swing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
yeah.
I think some of that happened during Cocodona too. We got up to Lane Mountain and there was a half a snowman still kind of perched right there at the Ultra Spire aid station, the Lane Mountain aid station. And Bryce comes up, he's like, there's just a little bit of a snowman left. Like you guys just missed the hailstorm and the snow. And so I was really happy to not hit the storm at Cocodona too.
Wow. Okay, well let's
Yeah.
talk about a little bit about VESPA, OFM, fueling strategies, hydration, because you've got two
Yeah.
of these under your belt and you're going to do several more this season, right? What are you signed up for?
Yep.
Tahoe.
Yeah, so we're heading into Tahoe next, and then we'll have Summit 200 in Colorado. And
Yep.
then after Summit, we will head to, I believe it's Oregon 200. Excited to go see the PNW. And then we got some great information this morning.
Yep,
Mammoth
Mammoth.
200 is happening. I'm so pumped.
I'm curious
for
to see,
Tim's,
I'm curious
for
about
Tim's
that
race.
crowd. It'll be good no matter what. But see, that's my playground. That's my backyard. That whole
Well,
the Southern Sierras, and a
you'll
lot of
have
that.
to come out and play.
Yeah, you got to come out and play, man. There's a lot of runs there that you would just absolutely, they're just to die for, but they'll never hold a race on because they're in wilderness sections. But there's just some crazy stuff. So yeah, you're going to do that. Yeah, I saw you post at Mammoth.
Yes, yeah, we've been on the wait list for quite some time, just with our fingers crossed, and it's happening.
Yeah,
So
because they weren't sure until today.
correct, yeah, yeah. And I think they still have a couple of T's to cross, I's to dot, things like that, which I think is probably typical for inaugural years. But yeah, Ultra sign up sent the final invitation. If you're on the wait list, you need to accept or decline by May 19th.
But you're in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we completed that email. We accepted the invitation today. So yeah, we're in for numbers. That'll be 200, number 6. So
And how many are you going to do this year? You're going to do like 3 or 4, 5?
so that'll be number 6. Yeah, we're registered all in for 6. 200, 250, 300, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. And you're just
Whatever.
looking at it. So tell us a little bit about the ease and aplomb that you were able to manage yourself in terms of just going through these things without having to be hyper kinetic about your nutrition. I mean, isn't that one of the beautiful things about getting fat adapted is it's kind of a very organic thing.
I've seen just a massive difference between our first Cocodona. After Cocodona was that 23? In 2023, I couldn't walk after that race. I have a video.
That was VESPA.
Yeah, before Vespa, there's a video. 2 pacers had to carry me to the van. I couldn't walk. So things were very, very different. And what I found through just education, becoming knowledgeable on how to fuel myself, just between Mike, you guys, Jeff, Pete, I mean, the whole OFM community has really shed a lot of light on what we eat before, what we eat during, what we eat after, what we put in our bodies really matters. And it's been so powerful. It has been life-changing, so much so that anytime someone asks me, and I get asked a lot about how are you recovering, from these events, that you can just immediately go back into a mega ultra like this. And a lot of it has to do with just it's a high protein, a high fat, low carb approach. And that's not for everybody. Everybody,
but it's not no carbs. It's not no carbs like ketogenic, no sugar.
Correct.
It's like there's carbs.
It's not keto. Yeah, it's not keto. It's not no carbs or anything like that. I just lead with protein and fat. So
whole foods.
Yeah, meat, eggs, cheese, and berries. Like that is the majority of what I eat on a daily. That's just what I crave. It's what fills me. It's what fuels me. Now, do we want a plate of nachos every once in a while? Yes. I try to stay away from gluten. So the chips that we'll make nachos with, the bean, everything, I'm just more mindful, I would say. I don't restrict. I don't, anything like that. I listen to my body, and whatever I crave, we will do, but in a mindful way.
Yeah. And there's those times where you occasionally have nachos and beer or pizza and beer, but you pay for it. And it reminds you, this is why we don't do this all the time.
Well, I will say that we're not beer drinkers or alcohol drinkers per se, but every once in a while I just have a craving like for nachos. We don't eat a lot of pizza. Jackie is like an extraordinary cook,
Right.
first of all. So she'll make, when we do pizza, most of the time it'll be a cauliflower crust that she makes from scratch. If we do, like tonight, we're having lumpia, those spring rolls that
Oh,
those are, yeah. She cooks all the time. She loves to cook.
can I reach through the screen and grab a lumpia?
If you could smell the house right now.
Man, yeah.
So,
And
and
that's yeah.
yeah, those are those are egg wraps, and it's filled, with shrimp or chicken or whatever we decide. But just being mindful of, and also knowing the difference in, like you were saying, how I feel if I eat something with a lot of gluten, or it's just something that's super carb heavy, more manufactured. So
Yep.
like,
Yep.
if it, like, the only bread that we'll really eat is like sourdough because it has 3 ingredients. There's not a whole bunch of other
Well, and the
crap in
the
it.
bacteria in
And
the sourdough starter helps break down the gluten,
yeah,
right?
yep.
Yeah.
So just that. And then Vespa has just been super key on a natural source of energy. There's no crashes. I just feel clear. And I'll notice there was one section, and I don't know if I shared this with you. There was one section at Monster that we didn't put in my pack Vespa or ketones or anything. And Stephanie was with me because she paced at Monster and Cocodona. But we were going to that section. It was so dark, and I remember I didn't have those tools and that fueling, and that's why I felt just so down. And something else, Vespa really keeps me from feeling sore. So I don't know the science behind that, but that section, I didn't have it. So I was groggy. I was not clear. I was not alert. It was nighttime, and my legs just felt like cinder blocks, Peter. Like it was, my hips were sore, my legs were sore. And so when we came into Gabe Zimmerman, it was a section before Gabe Zimmerman. And when we came in, I was like, we cannot go without Vespa. We cannot go without, we can't do sections without that.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that because years ago when Nikki Kimball went for the long trail FKT, and unfortunately she didn't wait for the weather because they had a film crew and they had a schedule and they had to go in
Right.
bad weather. So I think when she knew she had the female record, but she wasn't going to get the overall record, she did a day where she said, I'm just going to try this. And she went without Vespa, and she said every 33 minutes, it was like she was bonking.
Yep.
And then I go out after the stragglers, for the golden hour at Western States. You've seen me, right?
Yep.
I get
Yeah,
those
you were
golden
there.
hours, and every year I've gotten them to finish. Most of the years I'll get them in under the cutoff, but in the last 2 years, I mean, like last year, I got Iris Cooper in, she
Yes.
wouldn't have made it, but I gave her I picked her up way out, and she ended up with 2 Vespa Ultra concentrates and some S caps and Coke and a lot of what I call waterboarding, because I hit them with ice water because to cool them off and give them that
Yeah.
shock treatment. But it always gets them going. I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people are asking, what did you fuel the Lane Mountain climb with? And I can tell you, I had 4 packs of Vespa, the CV25, I had 2 concentrates, I had 8 ketone shots, 1 package of Grandma's Circus animal cookies, the cookies with the little pink and white
with the icing
frosting
on
and the
them. Yeah,
sprinkle.
yep, yep.
Yeah. And I had one of those. I had baby food pouches. I had applesauce pouches. I had grape juice, apple juice. I had a protein shake and green tea.
Yeah.
1 frozen water.
Yep.
That was it. I didn't eat sandwiches. I didn't eat chips. I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking of things that I've fueled in the past with, and it was all liquid calories. It was all, a little bit of sugar, natural sugar from the
Yeah.
fruit juices,
Yep.
a little bit of carbs, again, from the fruit, um, you know, and Vespa and ketones, like that was it,
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
it makes it pretty easy and intuitive. And like, that's part of my goal with people is to get them into a psychological mindset to where as long as they got their Vespa and their electrolytes and water, they
Yeah.
can make do on whatever's on the aid station
Yes.
table. It's no big deal.
Yes.
They're not like freaking out,
Right. Right. Well, and that's what I was talking about with Mortimer. While we were running these sections together, we were talking about Vespa and fueling, and I wanted to know, like, how do you use it versus, how I use it, and things I might try and things like that. And it's like we can be out on a 22-mile section, and that's all you need.
Yep.
And then we'll eat, at the aid station, and then we can hit another big section on just Vespa, water, electrolytes. Like,
Yep.
It's crazy. It's probably not crazy to you because you've known all of this for a long time. But for us new people, it's like, it's just the light bulb went off,
You got to experience it, because that's the problem
You
is
do.
people are asking you and you tell them and
Yes.
they just, unless they experience it,
Right.
and
Well,
I think
and
the
that's
reason Stephanie's there is all of a sudden she's surrounded by you
Yes.
and Peter and saying, and then she spent hours
Right.
watching you do this, and it's like there's got to be something to this.
Yeah, and she is so excited. She's going to be racing Tahoe as well. I'm super excited for her, but she's going to be fueling with Vespa. I had conversations with Wes Plate. He was like, "Okay, Andrea," like Wes Plate is asking me,
You got to tell me
what,
who he is, because I can't keep track of all the ultra runners these days.
well, just Google Wes Plate. You'll have a big
Wes Plate.
eye opening. Yes. He's like the godfather of 200s. His YouTube is incredible. It's all surrounded around sharing the 200-mile experience, multiple triple crowns. He also is a Monsterdona finisher. He's from Washington. He's a dear friend, and man, he basically just shares his experiences for free. Like, it's amazing. But all to say, even as much experience as Wes has, he's curious as to, how are you fueling? How are you feeling so recovered, after these big experiences? And so it's been really cool sharing Vespa and, OFM information with Wes.
Yeah, well, and here's the deal.
And so many others.
So you have a little bit better understanding of the recovery, because you notice the recovery between getting fat adapted and Vespa. They both enhance recovery. You put the two together and it's crazy. Like, that's what gives you the ability to just do Monster 300, Cocodona, Tahoe 200. I mean, you're just going to roll from one 200 to the next, and people just don't get that. But the reason is, the more you get back to what I call your foundational physiology, which is humans are meant to burn fat for their aerobic energy source.
Mm-hmm.
That's what evolution, nature, God created us to do, and why we store fat, right? Mm-hmm. We store a sustainable source. And we humans, with our ingenuity, have kind of messed that up. So the more you get into real fat burning, which is not keto, it's called beta oxidation, the cleaner burn you are. So what happens with, especially when you what people notice with the Vespa, because you can isolate it, right? Because fat adaptation is a whole bunch of things, is that recovery. And it's not actually because you recover faster, it's because you prevented the cellular and mitochondrial damage that you need to recover from. Because burning a lot of sugar creates a lot of oxidative stress, lactate load, lactic acid, and then a lot of what they call glycation, which is really bad too. And, it's like I say, if there's one thing nobody's going to disagree, we all can agree upon, I don't care who you are, too much sugar is not good, right? It's just like telling people smoking is good for you. Right. Nobody's going to disagree that smoking's bad for you. And nobody's going to disagree that too much sugar is good for you, right?
Right.
And what people don't realize is that all those concentrated carbs they're eating to fuel their training and races on a chronic basis is a mountain. It physiologically, it's a mountain of sugar. I mean, I ran the numbers, but I don't know if I've asked you this question, but you know how much sugar an athlete consumes in the 6 months leading up to a 100-miler or an Ironman, up to and through an Ironman or a 100-miler? And this is not what the Jim Walmsley's and the David Roches are doing. We're talking about the standard person, sports science backed diet of 200 calories an hour additional for your fueling for your training and racing, plus 60% of 2,000 calories a day is carbohydrate. Do you know how much sugar that adds up to?
I don't know.
You don't want to know. It's 155 pounds in 6 months. Yeah.
Wow.
It's simple math.
Wow.
It's 165 pounds of sugar is glucose. And so, the thing about OFM and VESPA is we're not saying go keto or no sugar, no carb. We're saying if you take a third out,
right,
you still have 100 pounds of sugar to work with, right?
Right.
If you take a half out, you got 75. If you're like Peter, like Jeff is probably at about half, right, or a third out, because he races. On races he pushes the calories. Peter's a little bit more on the lower carb end, so he gets by with less than 2/3. I mean, and you're probably the same way, because you, like you say, you go intuitively, and your body craves protein with fat.
Yep.
And you're thriving on it. So, but it doesn't mean you don't have the sugar. It means you're just not having that 155 pounds that somebody would be normally.
Right. Right. Right.
And that's like when you did your first Cocodona, were you working with Michael at that point, or had you not?
I had just started working with Mike the 6 months before.
Okay, so you weren't completely fat adapted.
No, and I was a vegan/vegetarian when I first started working with Mike, and he was the one that introduced me into something you might want to try, is this other approach. And so we spent the next 6 months more through the educating kind of process.
And Jackie went and bought you a steak, right?
The very first steak, we were in Dallas, and we went to, I think it's called Free Child or Wild Child, Flower Child or something. I didn't even know how to order a steak. Jackie had to help me. And I couldn't even eat the steak. I think I had like 2 or 3 bites, and I was so full from 3 bites, that's all I could eat. But that's kind of where it started, to where now, I mean, I'll just cook, a number of strips, New York strips, because they tend to be very fatty. And I cook those, and we cut it up into strips, and I eat it all throughout the day at work. That's my lunch. And then, So, and then whenever I am craving some sugar, I just have berries.
Yep.
So raspberries, blackberries, that's kind of my sugar intake really. Um,
Yeah, except for when you're
so
racing, you'll have stuff like, baby food, fruit baby food or whatever
I would
you
say baby food. I
fruit.
think somewhere along the way I had some nerd clusters.
Yep.
That was like super fun because it was like a salty sweet treat or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's the real thing. Like you're in that point now where you're burning fat at a high rate that you don't have that damage on a cellular mitochondrial level to recover
yeah,
from. And
yeah.
there's another benefit to that, because when you're not having to recover from all that damage, your body's putting more effort into the adaptation, right? The training effect, the supercompensation,
Mm-hmm.
which is why you feel stronger going into Cocodona after doing Monster, because you got more adaptation than needing to recover.
It was, I'll just say, it was very, very eye-opening to show up at Cocodona feeling as great as I did. I was telling Jack, I was like, this is so weird. This is so weird. I mean, it was exciting, but it was like it's new territory for me. Like this was just something incredible. And I know like last year signing up for 5 200s, we completed 3. We were Tahoe was the one race that kept us from finishing the Grand Slam.
Yep.
Like we were going to be Grand Slam finishers last year, but we were showing up this year even stronger than last year. I showed up at Monster, and the number of people that were coming up to me like, "You look so lean, Andrea. Like, what have you been doing?" And I
Oh,
don't feel like I've been doing anything different. It's just the process is really starting to catch up.
yeah,
And
you're in that phase. You must be, I'll bet also after you had a couple of meals after Monster and a couple of meals after Cocodona, you're probably hunger suppressed. You're just like not really all that hungry.
no, not at all. I would say the first like day or two, I really wanted to just eat everything in sight.
Yeah.
But we stayed smart, and Mike was really specific about this is what immediately after the race, these are the types of things that you need to eat. And so I think we did have some tacos, or I don't know, or pizza, we had something that was like not on the list. But for the most part, you're right. Like we weren't after that day 1, day 2, we were.
Yeah.
I just eat strips of steak, some scrambled eggs, and some berries.
Yeah.
It's
Because
weird. It's so weird. I
it's
don't know.
everything is counterintuitive to what most
Yeah,
people experience, where they're wanting to eat the house down for 2 weeks. And
yeah,
it's like,
no, just a day, maybe a day or two.
yep.
I feel pretty hungry, but for the most
Well, and
part, we're just we're just sleeping.
a lot of that hunger is also driven by the disruption of circadian rhythm and how it jacks up your cortisol and glucose. So you have
Yeah,
the blood sugar dips
yeah,
that's going to trigger the hunger. And once you get that sleep and normalize, it's like, I'm not hungry anymore.
right. Definitely, it takes I would say a good day to 2 days just to get your sleep pattern
Yep.
back. And yeah, spot on. As soon as that happens, it's back to regular, you know.
And you're going to be doing,
So
I imagine, because of what happened at Tahoe last year, you're going to be doing a lot of training on Elda in the next few weeks.
we have our first climb on Sunday.
Yep.
I think Stephanie and I are gonna repeat. This year at Cocodona, it was a new climb. So you
Yep.
climb Little Eldon and then come over and then go down the very jaw-dropping face of Eldon descent. So
Yeah. You guys came down this year the way we came up
yes,
last year, right?
yep, yep.
Yeah.
And that descent was gnarly on tired legs. It was not very fun at all. But yeah, we're gonna do that climb on Sundays. So we'll be back in the mountains here in
Good.
a couple of days.
Getting your elevation training for Tahoe.
Yep, back at it.
All right. Well, anything
So.
you're really living, your life and your best life, and really inspiring others. So anything you can share with us about that, to, it's just always good to see athletes who take this route, and how they just, everything evolves, that they not only get fat adapted, they're performing better, their GI issues or their bonkings resolve, but they also start to take a little more agency for their lives in terms of, making life choices that accommodate that whole work-life leisure balance. Now, some people might say that what you're doing is not very balanced. I would say I don't think it's that far off, because we're meant to be moving all day.
Right. Yeah. Well, I spent the first 30 years of my career in a very sedentary way. I sat at an office at a desk, 8 to 5, working at the bank, doing what we're supposed to do, and was fortunate enough to be very successful at that. And there just comes a time where it's like, is this what I want to do forever? Is sit at a desk, looking at a computer, making phone calls? And I think at some point you just have to say there's got to be more to living. And I just wanted to get out there, and I wanted to have experiences. And I think the biggest thing is to know that we write our story. It is up to us to write our story, and nobody else can write it for us. And so it's up to us to decide what you want that story to look like. And you have complete control over that. The decisions sometimes aren't easy decisions, but just know the most important decisions are the big decisions. And anything easy is bullshit. And it's not worth your time. So unless it's hard, you're basically just wasting away. So we need to seek out doing hard things so that we can actually feel alive and feel love, and just, I don't know, that to me is living, is doing the hard things. And sitting behind a desk was a waste of time.
Well, and I think to add to that, one of the things is, and I've made these mistakes in life, but you can't help somebody who can't help themselves, right? We all want to help people out and all that, but when you look at like your crew, Jackie and the Pacers, the people around you, you still have to do the work. You have to do the hard thing for yourself, but all of a sudden this community comes around to help you do that. And that's how it should work, right? Nobody's doing it for you. They're not trying to help somebody who can't do it. It's just kind of an inspiration. And then how that gives back to the community. I mean, Peter has people helping him, and we all are here to try to help each other on the journey, but each one of us has that journey. And like you say, you got to do the hard things. It's hard decisions, and you're the one writing your story. And if you allow others to write the story, you're writing that story for you.
Yeah. I think we find our people when we're doing what we love. And when we're doing what we love with passion, it's our tribe will just be like magnets, and they'll just find you. But it's like that tribe only comes when we are taking the helm, and we're making the hard decisions, and we're doing the things that fuel our passion. You're fueling your passion, all of a sudden all these people will gravitate towards that, and before you know it, it's like you're all rowing this boat, and the synergy just gets greater and greater and greater, and before you know it, you're doing some really incredible things.
Yeah, and I like how you say that, because you're contexting the passion that drives the human spirit, that drives the really good part about humanity, but you're contexting it with the fact that this isn't easy. This is work. This is discipline. This is hard. You're going to hit these lows that are incredibly low, and you've got the weight of the world on you, but yet you still keep going.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to decide that there's a way out or there's a way through. And only you can make that choice. Nobody can make it for you. the pacers can persuade you. The crew can inspire you, but at the end of the day, you have to decide, am I going to go out or through? And you have to know that on the other side of through is this amazing, incredible version of you, life, passion, love. Like, it's so incredible on the other side. Like, you have to go through. You have to go through, but you can't make people decide to go through, right? We want to inspire and motivate other people. They have to do that. You have to decide to go through. And I promise, once you go through, it is so magical. It'll be painful. There's a tax to pay. There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? You have to go through that fire. And when you come out on the other side, it's beyond words. You can't explain it. And it's something
you're talking biblical proportions like, here.
But it's something that's like, you just want it. Once you have a taste, you want everyone to experience this. Yes. And it's like, I promise, if you just hang on, you'll make it. Yeah. But they have to decide to hang on. They have to decide to go through.
And that's the thing. You got to get out of your comfort zone. And the problem with modern society is people have gotten to a place where they're just too darn comfortable, and they don't realize that is death itself, being comfortable.
100%. Yeah, that's not living. That's tolerating. To be in one place for a long time. My newest mantra is to cling to nothing, experience everything. And you can only do that if you are a constant wave moving forward, So.
Wow, that's a wonderful message you just gave us. Andrea, I'm glad I got you to that space to share that with us, because people need to hear that. I'm going to share this with my kids.
I share it with my kids. They're 21, 20, and 18. And it's something that's like, sometimes to stay in one place, it feels comfortable. It feels safe. It feels secure. It's something that So that's not what's meant for us. If you're constantly moving forward, it's always new. It's always different. It's always, that's growth. We can't stay in one spot. How are you going to get to the next connection? How are you going to get to the next experience, the next moment, the next memory? We have to just keep propelling forward. And sometimes,
and this goes back to my noodling as a biologist, because what you're saying is aligned with our natural state. And that's the thing. Our man-made construct, the modern world we live in, is so comfortable, but it's very much static. Right? And we don't want to move out of that comfort zone. And, we've got it to the point where people don't even have to go out of their house to get food anymore. They can just go on their phone. If they make it to the front door to pick up their DoorDash or their Uber Eats, they're set. And it's like, and then here you are, doing over 600 miles in a month.
Right. And it doesn't have to be like 600 miles in a month. I think sometimes just moving forward is speaking something that we're afraid to say. It's having the difficult conversations. It's responding to the emails that we've been avoiding. It's going into, there's just so many things that are scary, because anything unknown, right, is scary. We don't know. We don't have control. And if we don't have control and we don't know, there's a lot of fear in that space. Yep. But it's like, living is the total opposite of that. Fully living is not knowing.
Well, it's getting past your fear to getting to curiosity. Yes. Like, what's out there?
Yes. Yeah. The world's full of 8 billion people. We're miney little teeny tiny ants on this rock, and we should go places. and meet people and have experiences and like, I don't know, just like waves in a stream. We're meant to just keep moving on. And I can't imagine people that don't do that. Like, there's just so much waiting for you, you know?
Yeah.
And we're all capable. There's nothing fancy about Sally McRae. There's nothing fancy about Max Jolliffe. There's nothing fancy about Andy Glaze. Nothing fancy about Andrea Moore, Peter Defty. We all put our pants on the same way every morning. Everyone is very capable of doing these things. You just have to decide what you want, make a plan, do the work, believe, and do it.
Well, I don't want to put my pants on. How's that?
Well, you don't have to. But yeah, I mean, like sometimes we put people on pedestals.
Yep.
And we think, oh, that race is not meant for me. That person is so much greater than I am. No, absolutely not. Those are self-made limitations.
Yep.
And they're bogus. They're not real. It's all made up in your head. We're all very, very capable.
Yeah. No, you said it. And that's the cool thing about, somebody like Peter Mortimer is, he's out there. He loves pacing Andrea as much as being at the front of Monster 300. Yeah. I mean, it's just sharing that journey with everybody.
It's a true testament to just how incredible our community is. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes we see someone win a race and we put them on a pedestal and we're just like, oh, that person's so unreachable. Like they're just so high up there because they're just so incredible. And it's like, no, they're actually very salt of the earth. They're very human. They're very incredible people, very talented, gifted athletes who work exponentially, but they're very, very salt of the earth. And I find that with Mike McKnight, Jeff Browning, all of them. Even Courtney DeWalter was at Cocodona. I mean, she's
and just like a lot of other people, she had a DNF. Doesn't happen to her very often, but
right.
She's human too, right?
Sounds like more fast people problems to me, Peter. But yes, she is absolutely human.
Right. It's interesting you say that because who's using Vespa now and is fascinated by it is Mark Allen. You can tell that to Jackie.
I will.
He's over the moon with it. And we've been having these very interesting exchanges because he's a very intuitive person too. He worked with Phil Maffetone, and so we're having these really interesting exchanges, and I'm helping him out with some other stuff because he's having trouble getting back to running. But he's on a bike, he's surfing a lot, but he's also traveling a lot, because of his work with TriDot and the triathlon community in general.
Yeah.
But like you said, my interactions with him are like, this guy's asking me questions. So it's really cool. So anyway, well, thank you so much for all that wisdom and inspiration for people. I mean, like I said, I'm going to show this to my kids because, I want them to understand why I push them. I get in trouble for pushing them. And it's like, and they get it when we do stuff and they get to the top of that mountain and see where they've come. It's like, wow, this is pretty cool. But they don't, but that's how that's how you achieve things, right?
Yep. You have to pay the price. I always call it a tax to pay. Rent is due. There's a toll, and anything that comes for free is trash. Yeah,
and like you were saying about you don't have to run 300 miles, and we'll close it up. But your journey to doing what you're doing now, this incredible month you've had and the incredible months you're going to have, it started with a decision. Like you said, you were doing what you're supposed to do, building a career and a retirement and all that stuff as a personal wealth manager. And there was something there that started to say, this is not what I want. And is there something out there? And how do I get to that somewhere? And you would have never known back then, would you have, that it would have led to this?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, couldn't run a mile in 2017, and somehow walking the dog on the Katy Trail in downtown Dallas turned into one telephone pole at a time, which turned into 5 miles, which turned
Yeah,
it's
which
just
turned into
it's
600
incredible.
miles. Yeah. So we'll leave it at that, man. That's fantastic. Well, enjoy your lumpia,
Yes, thank you.
and thank you for being such a outstanding ambassador for us. Keep that stuff coming. Um,
For sure.
keep it real, both the beauty and the spectacularness of what you're doing, but also the stuff that, balance it with the reality of it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate
All
you guys
right.
so
Hey,
much.
give my love to Jackie.
We'll do it.
All
Talk to you
right.
later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.